Today is August 10th. It's the 222nd day of the year, and this is the On This Day podcast. Listener discretion is advised today for the story of Leno and Rosemary, a married couple from the Los Feliz neighborhood of Los Angeles. In the early morning hours of this day in 1969, they're on their way home from Lake Isabella, a vacation spot a few hours outside L.A. It's been a slow drive back with Leno's boat in tow. The week before, they dropped the boat off at the lake for Frank to use, Rosemary's son by a previous marriage. And the day before, they drove up to pick up Frank in the boat. But he's having so much fun up there with his friends, Leno and Rosemary agree to let the 15-year-old Frank stay another night. Driving back to L.A., Leno and Rosemary listen to the news on the radio. They hear the reports about the horrific murders that took place the night before in a house perched above Beverly Hills. Rosemary's daughter Susan is along for the ride this night, and she later recalls her mother being disturbed by the news reports. According to Susan, Rosemary had told friends a few weeks earlier that someone had been in their house while they were away. Someone had gone through their things, moved their furniture, and the dogs were left outside when they should be inside. Rosemary is 38 years old. As mentioned, she's been married once before and has two children, Frank and 21-year-old Susan. Frank lives with the couple, and Susan has her own apartment nearby. And Rosemary owns a successful dress boutique located just north of Dodger Stadium. Before that, Rosemary works for years as a waitress while stuck in a bad marriage. She gets out of that marriage in 1958 and meets Leno in 1959. They marry that same year. It's also a second marriage for 44-year-old Leno. He is an executive at Gateway Markets, a grocery business his father started. And they live with Rosemary's son in the Los Feliz home where Leno grew up. But they're anxious to move out of that house and leave the neighborhood. There have been a number of break-ins on their street in the previous month. Leno has lost interest in the grocery business, so as soon as he can extricate himself from Gateway Markets, they plan to move out of the house for good. Around 1:30 in the morning on this day in 1969, they drop Susan off at her apartment in Los Feliz, and then drive down Hillhurst to the newsstand at the intersection of Hillhurst and Franklin. Leno is a regular there, and when the owner sees the green Thunderbird with the boat in tow pulling up, he grabs a copy of the Herald-Examiner and a racing form. They chat for a few minutes about the murders the night before, and then the Thunderbird pulls away, back up Hillhurst the way they came. A little before 2 a.m., Leno pulls the car up their steep driveway at 3301 Waverly Drive. Rosemary retires to the bedroom for the night. Leno sits down on the couch to read the paper, but soon dozes off. Leno and Rosemary leave their back door unlocked, and it's through the back door that the two scruffy, scrawny young men enter. The shorter of the two men, the one with the devil in his eyes, nudges Leno awake with the barrel of his pistol. He tells him, "We won't hurt you, we're only here to rob you." He unties a leather thong from around his neck and uses it to bind Leno's hands. The night before, the taller of the two men, the one they called Tex, he was in that other house, where the unspeakable things happened. The things they talked about on the radio. The things that so disturbed Rosemary. Incomprehensible violence. And in the wee hours of the morning on this day, He's in the house on Waverly Drive. For the same reason. Because Charlie told him to come here and kill everyone in the house. Charlie, the shorter of the two men, the devil incarnate, wakes up Rosemary at gunpoint and brings her into the living room. Tex pulls a pillowcase over Leno's head, and then another one over Rosemary's, and binds their hands with lamp cords. Charlie leaves and sends in two young women, Patricia and Leslie. They've been waiting outside in the car. The two women take Rosemary back to the bedroom, leaving Tex in the living room with Leno. And that's when the nightmare begins. When it's all over, Tex takes a shower, and the killers help themselves to some milk and sandwiches, and then they leave their mark, just like Charlie told them to, writing the words "Death to Pigs" and "Rise" on the wall, and the words "Helter Skelter" on the refrigerator door, misspelling the name of the Beatles song Helter Skelter, Charlie Manson's name for the impending race wars and apocalypse. And then Tex, Patricia, and Leslie leave and hitchhike back to the family's ranch north of the city. More than 12 hours later, Rosemary's son Frank returns home. Walking up the drive, he notices the boat still hitched to the Thunderbird. It's not like Leno to leave it hooked up like that. And he notices that all the blinds in the house are drawn. That's also not normal. He looks into the kitchen and sees that the light is on. He knocks on the back door. No one answers. He calls out to his mom. Still no answer. Frank has a very uneasy feeling. So he heads back down the drive and walks to a nearby payphone at a hamburger stand to call his sister. Susan and her boyfriend pick Frank up at the hamburger stand, and the three of them go back to the house on Waverly and enter through the back door. Susan waits in the kitchen while her brother and her boyfriend proceed into the living room, where they find what once was Leno LaBianca, murdered, along with his wife Rosemary LaBianca, two of the victims in the notorious Sharon Tate murders committed by Charles Manson and the Manson family, killed and found dead on this day in 1969. There are 143 days left in the year,